what we're actually saying here, and the good doctor said it so plain, if they want a pipeline, no problem. And I would go with the pipeline, just get out of Rice Creek and go, we're going. That's probably another super fund we got on our hands down there and don't know it yet. But if we put a simple water filtration system, taking all of those chemicals out, I know I'm oversimplifying this, then dump it into a pipeline, okay? And we monitor it at the filtration, not at the back end of the pipeline. We will know daily. Anybody can go on your computer and the DBA engineer, whoever it is there that's monitoring there, I want our folks monitoring. I don't want DPP as my best friend, because I know they're gonna lie to me. It's simple as that, because bucks are involved. But if we knew daily, or DP were able to access it by computer of so many parts per million of acid or lead or dioxin or whatever's coming out of that plant, we could put an injunction against that plant that day. Shut it down, you don't pump another gallon of water until you get back to specifications of what DEP says you're supposed to.
This is the point I was trying to make. You don't measure it at the filtration plant in the plant. You have the pipeline at the river where it's being discharged into the river. Don't run it under 10 feet, 1,600 yards out and 10 feet deep. You'll never know. So I agree with you totally that, but the point is you have the measurement at the discharge point. Then you know what's going into the river.
Well, I was speaking of where it hooked into the filtration, you could check it out there.
That's monitored by chemical devices all the time anyway.
But see, that's not being done now, and that's the problem.
As we said, it's a network, so how do you know how many feed lines are going into the thing?
Okay, in conclusion, we've got down to this point now to where you've negotiated, you know, DEP is in there saying, okay, if you don't do X, X is going to happen. Here are some of the X's that can happen to Georgia Pacific, and they will understand it quite readily because they're in business to make dollars. In this, just like what we did with the dolphins and the tuna business, if this matter is not resolved in a quick manner, guess what? Everybody in this room can tell 5 people around you, don't buy any GD product.
Right.
Tell them now. A lot of That's what's going to clean this mess up. And we can boycott the bill. We can boycott the workers. We can have a recall on the governor because he's not taking a And the city council of the city of Jacksonville has got to take a stand.
Yes,
and
I agree with that. Totally.
Make a united voice at some point in time, because guess what rolls downhill? The St. Johns River, and it's right outside the city council chambers right now. And all those affluents, all those carcinogenic agents, and all those cancers are going to be right in your lap if you don't make a stand against Georgia Pacific at some point in time. And all of us stay involved, and I want to thank the press for being here. I was afraid this issue was going to die on the back burner. Thank you, Channel 12, for being here. Why Tom Wilson and the rest of them aren't here, I don't know. But thanks to the Riverkeeper, thanks to the director, and thanks to the staff.
Two things I do want to make sure. If you go to the website cleanergp.com, you can send the governor a petition. We have sent over 3,000. Something happened to the mail because we have not heard back from the governor. I'm sure there's some problem with his mail. But seriously, the other thing I would ask that you send a petition to Secretary Herschel Vineyard. Herschel is a local guy. He's the secretary. And frankly, if we want to see a solution to this, the citizens of this region need to do as that gentleman said, stand up for the public trust. Yes?
You?
Yeah, you.
Okay, let me preface my twofold question with a couple of observations. First, I haven't seen any documentation that covers the increased negative consequences of dumping directly into the the St. Johns. We talked briefly about that Rice Creek acts as a buffer. My first question is, what is the quality and depth of the buffering that Rice Creek does currently, and what are the other negative consequences besides the inability to properly test the pipeline if a pipeline is created? What increased negative consequences will we see besides just being able to test it? So if you could, I just want to know the answer to those two questions before, maybe that's a better way to combat the creation
You
of
want to
pipeline.
answer Rice Creek and I'll answer the pipeline.
Nature of Rice Creek buffering, how much does it buffer?
I'll try.
Okay. And,
Well, as we all know, that what you're doing is in the total volume of Rice Creek after the discharge, it's on average, it's 90% wastewater and 10% actual stream. So there's not a lot of assimilation that can take place. But, and this is actually where in some of our technical discussions, had a little bit of a disagreement with one of the DEP engineers. Because I think early on there was a feeling that Rice Creek was providing no treatment, if you will, to the effluent prior to reaching the St. Johns River. But it seemed fairly obvious to me that if you've got mineral contaminants in the sediments in Rice Creek, then obviously they're being removed. And the whole setting in Rice Creek is, as you may know, it's more like a wetlands, and any time the water level gets up, it overflows the banks into a very rich organic type of wetlands, which actually is very well known to improve effluent qualities. In fact, wetlands treatment is frequently used in other applications. So I guess that's a long-winded way of telling you is nobody really knows exactly what the assimilative capacity is of Rice Creek, but it seems clear that it is removing some of the materials in the effluent before that effluent reaches the river. And I'm going to let, did that answer your?
that answered the first question perfectly.
Yeah, okay. I'm going to pass this up.
The simplest answer for the second one is a surge. How do you know if you got a hidden pipeline, what happens into a surge? For example, dioxins in Pond 1. Suppose you get a hurricane or some kind of wind event and it suddenly goes all the way down and through. If you've got a hidden pipeline, how do you know what's going to happen? And with so many connecting sewers in the plant, you've heard of surges. Surges that happen in plants all the time. So how would you know with a hidden pipeline? One thing I want to answer this gentleman in conclusion. One thing that you have to approach GP on, when I say an MRI, I'm talking about a feasibility study. You can't just come in and say, technically you can do this. You have to compare the operating costs of what they're doing now plus versus what you're suggesting, logically. And it has to be done, that sort of feasibility study. They are moved by money. Is that any surprise to anybody? Now, I've had six friends, experts in the business, look at this, and they think we all came up with a range of numbers, as Neil knows. He's seen the communications. We're approximately $30 million. You can get a 6-year payback and solve the problem. But don't let proctologists do the feasibility study. All right? Oh, and the surge. Did I answer your question on the surge?
Yeah, I think that.
You don't know what's going to happen.
Exactly. Okay, so there are possibly extreme negative consequences. Have these issues been discussed and raised with GP in the meetings? Have we talked to DEP about the possible increased negative consequences of the pipeline beyond just the inability for them to meet the numeric criterion? Have we addressed these issues in regards to the administrative order or any? Those are.
So far, they don't want to talk. I've had one meeting with GP, and it was well, you've heard the term fluster, you can imagine what follows.
I'd like to follow up with one other thing about, and this kind of falls in the realm of esoteric unknown that we may never know for sure. But and it centers around the legacy compounds that we know are in the effluent, the dioxins, as well as suspected legacy compounds that we don't know about. And often these contaminants are associated with the color bodies, that rich color body, and the organic matter. And what I'm a little bit concerned about is if the discharge goes straight into the main stem, and these perhaps contaminant-bearing color bodies move directly down the main stem and reach higher salinity areas, what happens is organic matter just flocculates out. That's why you get these mucky areas up around Cedar Ortega, because the salinity is increasing. So that's a bit of a concern to me, or a concern, not just a bit of a concern, is we really don't know. If we don't know the compounds, we have not done a full assessment of the potential harmful compounds in that effluent. We really don't know where they're going to end up if they are indeed there. We don't know if they're going to sequester there in the Cedar Ortega area, which already is horribly contaminated. So, in my opinion, that's an unknown, and but it's a very difficult question to answer without doing it.
There are over 350 different compounds you can identify in this plant. Sodium compounds, chlorine, and which one does what? You have to do the analysis, the MRS, and say, that's the one that's causing it.
Yes, ma'am, you get the last question.
Those big sludge ponds, is there any possibility that they could be leaking into the ground underneath?
Into the groundwater. Those ponds are unlined, and so there has been issues raised about that. I have not seen documentation of what's. Have you, Lucy?
Not under the ponds. They do have groundwater monitoring on the mill site that is monitored by DEP. But they don't have groundwater wells underneath the ponds per se, but of course the groundwater in that system is going to be all connected. But that's all I know about that.
First, I'm sorry, but I want to make sure people get out at 8. I have two quick
I have
announcements.
One question. Who's got my methanol plant?
Yes, right here.
Okay. Two things. First, I want to thank everybody for coming out. I appreciate. Let's have a round of applause for Dr. Sonnenberg. Bob's work is on the Cleaner GP website, and we're going to post Dr. Sonnenberg's report. That, I'm an ecologist, I can understand it. We have some fact sheets at the desk up front. This is also on the Cleaner GP. The river belongs to all of us, and we have a responsibility to take care of it. I'm going to end on a very positive note. We have a gentleman, Jim. Stand up, Jim. Yes, I'm going to make you. Jim Alopecia is going to swim from Fleming Island to Walter Jones Park this Sunday. He's swimming to raise awareness about the river and its issues. Jim, what's your website? Or your
jumpingfish.net/SASJ,
So jumpingfish.net. He's got I'm going to be out there in the Riverkeeper boat and trying to stay out of his way, not to help him. But anybody, what time do you think you'll get to Walter Jones Park? 9?
Well, I launch at 7:50.
7:50 on the West Bank, Fleming Island.
And I'm calculating about 1 hour and 53 minutes, which is about 9:45, 9:50.
So folks, come on out at about 9:45 on Sunday morning. That's a great park, Walter Jones Historic Park on Mandarin Road. Jim, thanks. I appreciate you helping us, and good luck, and I'll see you Sunday. And again, folks, thanks everybody for coming. We appreciate it.